You don't remember the moment you became capable. There was no clear before and after. No single event you can point to and say, that's when it happened. You just remember noticing something subtle, that things went smoother when you didn't react, that people relaxed when you handled problems quietly, that tension eased when you stayed composed, so you did. You learned early that emotions had consequences. That mess created stress. That needs complicated, already fragile systems, so you simplified yourself. You became efficient, predictable, low-maintenance. You learned how to anticipate before being asked, how to read moods before words were spoken, how to sense when something might go wrong and step in before it did. And no one stopped you. In fact, they rewarded you. They called you mature. They called you reliable. They said you were wise beyond your years. But what they didn't say, what they didn't see, is that this wasn't wisdom, it was adaptation. And adaptation is never free. Because here is the paradox at the center of your life. The very skill that kept you emotionally safe as a child is now the reason you struggle to feel deeply held as an adult. Capability became your armor, and armor protects you. Yes, but it also blocks warmth, blocks intimacy, blocks rest. You don't break down easily. You don't lose control. You don't need much reassurance, but you also don't feel fully relaxed. You don't receive help naturally. You don't know how to exist without managing. Something you learned how to survive early, but survival quietly replaced living. Psychology has language for this. PARENTIFICATION. It happens when a child takes on emotional, psychological, or practical responsibility before their nervous system is ready. Sometimes you became the emotional container for adults. Sometimes the peacekeeper. Sometimes the one who stayed calm so others wouldn't fall apart. Sometimes the child who learned that someone had to be steady, and it might as well be you. This creates hypervigilance. Your nervous system learned that safety comes from monitoring monitoring tone, monitoring silence, monitoring emotional shifts. Your body learned to stay slightly tense, not because danger was always present, but because unpredictability was. Over time, your brain reorganized itself around usefulness, your default mode network, the system that governs. Self-reflection and inner narrative shifted away from felt experience and toward task orientation. Instead of asking, "What am I feeling?" your system learned to ask, "What needs to be handled? What needs to be prevented? What would keep things stable?" Emotion became background noise. Rest became suspicious. Stillness felt unearned, and eventually, capability stopped being a strategy. It became identity. You didn't just do responsibility, you became responsible. Here is the grief most capable people carry silently. You didn't lose your childhood to chaos alone. You lost it to responsibility. You sacrificed spontaneity for predictability, expression for composure, need for self-sufficiency. Carl Jung once wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent." But there is another burden that rarely gets named, the burden of being emotionally self-sufficient too soon. You learned that being easy to deal with kept you safe, that not needing much kept you included, that being strong made you valuable. And so you internalized a quiet rule: my worth is measured by how little I require. This belief follows you into adulthood. It shows up as guilt when you rest, as discomfort when someone offers help, as anxiety when life feels too calm. At your core lives of fear you rarely articulate. If I stop being useful, I disappear. So vulnerability feels dangerous. Softness feels indulgent. Receiving feels foreign. Even joy gets monitored. Even ease feels temporary. Even love feels conditional. Not because you're broken, but because you were trained to survive without being held. This pattern doesn't fade with time, it evolves. You might be the adult who overfunctions in relationships while feels responsible for other people's emotional states, struggles to ask for help but resents always being the helper, feels uneasy during rest, vacations, or stillness, is admired for strength but rarely feels deeply understood. Mistakes, emotional numbness for PCO, may become hyper-independent, or emotionally reserved, or the person everyone leans on, but no one thinks to support. You might choose partners who need fixing, careers that reward overextension, roles that reinforce usefulness over presence. These are not flaws. They are coping strategies. They once kept you safe, but now they keep you distant from yourself. Healing does not begin with forcing change. It begins with witnessing. With saying, "This makes sense. This protected me. I don't need to shame it." Unlearning means teaching your nervous system that safety can exist without vigilance, that rest does not equal collapse, that need does not equal burden, that being supported does not mean losing control. This is slow work, because your body learned survival over years. It will not surrender it overnight. Healing looks less dramatic than people expect. It looks like permission to pause without justification, permission to be uncertain, permission to let someone else lead. It means reparenting the part of you that learned love was conditional on performance. It means practicing softness not as weakness, but as regulation, letting yourself be seen before you're competent, letting yourself rest before you earn it, letting yourself receive without proving value. This is not about losing your strength. It's about releasing it from survival mode. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard wrote, "To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself." Daring now means allowing support, allowing mess, allowing slowness. You don't need to become someone new. You need to reclaim the parts of you that were postponed. You were never too much. You were just too capable for a system that needed you to grow up too fast. And now, you get to grow back into yourself, not to be fixed, but to be whole. If this resonated, share it with someone who became strong too soon. And remember, you didn't become capable because you were ready. You became capable because you had to.